Hello. Today we are going to be learning how to do a specific build in this game. This game is StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm. Um, and the basics of this video game is it's a computer game that's called an RTS game, which is a real-time strategy game. What that means is that an individual person or player um, micromanages units and buildings. And what they do is they use the buildings to create units, and then they use the units to defeat their opponent. Um, and usually to make units, they have to gather resources or money or something along those lines. In this game, uh, in Heart of the Swarm, what we're going to be doing is there are three races. There is Protoss, there is Terran, and there is Zerg. Now the backstory is that looks wise and kind of ability wise, if you never played this video game, what you can do is if you ever seen the movie Alien versus Predator or any of the Alien movies or the Predator movies, you can kind of make a comparison there. Um, One example being for the aliens are the Zerg race, which they look exactly like they look pretty much like the aliens in the movies Aliens. And then the Predators are represented by the Protoss race, which they have, they have cloaked units that become invisible, and they also have shields and stuff. So, and then the humans, which is the ones that portray that die from the aliens and the predators, are called the Terran, but they're not that fragile in this video game, of course. So, of course, in this video game, it's one. I'm going to be doing a one versus one strategy, which is and it's going to be a Protoss versus Protoss build. This build is called a four gate. This build incorporates a mechanic called warp gate technology, which I will get to later. But the essence of this build is you're supposed to get units to your opponent's base as fast as possible, and to catch him off guard and kill him because he doesn't have the units prepared to defend it. So, um, warp gate technology, which is what I'm going to be referring to as warp gate a lot, are is a ability slash technology that Protoss has, only Protoss has, which is a kind of a teleportation ability. And what it does is you build something called a gateway, and once your warp gate technology is completed, you can transform the gateway into a warp gate. And the warp gate allows you to select any kind of unit that you can build out of it, and you can warp it towards a pylon, which is kind of like a power field, I guess you could say. Um, and and it's kind of like an energy field that allows you to warp in units from the gateway or the warp gate. Pylons, they serve as the power fields for your buildings also, so that they make sure your warp gates and everything else can operate, because you can't have a building without electricity. It's kind of the same thing. And they also give you supply. Now, in this game, when I talked about resources that you need to get or collect, you do this is right here. This will show you the resources you have. In this game, you have two and a half, kind of three resources, I guess you could say, because you're not really collecting the third one. What you have is you have minerals, which is right here, these blue patches right here. Sometimes they're gold, but on most maps there's no gold ones. And then you have this green little box, which is gas, Vespene gas, which is pretty valuable because it means that you can get tech, which gives you better units and better buildings that help you along the game. And so I'm going to refer to as minerals and gas, and you have to keep that money low because that means that your macro is good. Macro is the concept of spending your money, having buildings, and having units. Micro is when you have those units and you move those units individually without you macroing behind it, and you're trying to keep the units efficiently. You're trying to use the units as efficiently as possible and keeping them alive. And so the so we're going to get back to the four gate thing, the build. So it's going to be a PvP, which means Protoss versus Protoss. This is the Nexus, which is the main building where your probes, which are your workers, right here. You start out with 6 workers. Your probes are the workhorses of the Protoss. What they do is they collect the gas and the minerals, and that allow you to build buildings and units. So, this is going to be a 4 gate, which is specifically designed for Protoss versus Protoss. Our other opponents over here. He starts out the same exact thing, just on different sides of the map. Now, there's no better positioning on this map or anything like that, because then that would be unfair for the other player. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to have our handy dandy notepad that are going to list the important keys to this build, so that at the end we can kind of review and have a visual aid of what we actually accomplish or should do. And so at the very beginning, we're gonna hit play. We might speed this up just a little bit. And right away, we start out with 50 minerals as you saw before, and now it goes down to 0 because what we did was we built a probe. Throughout this, um, for our listings on the notepad, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have the supply count as the markers and time instead of doing in-game time, because sometimes it's not very reliable, because your actions could be a little bit slower, it could be a little bit faster. Sometimes just things happen and you just can't do that. So we're gonna go by supply, which is right here. This little supply markers. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I will announce when the actual supply is. And so, and I'm not going to write build a probe every single time, because that's kind of indicating your increase in supply anyway. So we're going to start off by starting your probe. There's very few builds in StarCraft in general where you don't build your first worker. There's very few, if none, pretty much. So, also with Heart of the Swarm, one of the new AIs, or the new interfaces, which is really nice, is that right here, it tells you how many workers you have on the mineral line. Um, and what we're gonna do for this game, or for this actual build, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the worker count go up to 16 out of 24. That's gonna make it where there are 2 probes on each mineral patch, which is the most efficient mining you can have per your supply. You can go up to 24, which means that everything's working fine, but for this build, it's a rush, so we don't want to keep building probes. We want to cut probes, and we want to get our units over there as fast as possible. With having a okay economy behind us, not the greatest, but it's gonna be sufficient for what we're gonna do. And so I'm gonna restart. I'm gonna hit play again. You got to be manner to your opponent. Good luck, have fun. Say that to your opponent. It's always a good thing to do. So you keep making probes. Keep making probes. Also, another thing, while this game is still going um, on the Nexus, see this little purple bar right here, right below the health bar. Um, That's energy called that you can use for Chrono Boost that the Nexus has, that only Protoss has, that the Nexus has. They can use something called Chrono Boost. Chrono Boost is something that where it makes it where makes a building or makes a building do its activity 50% faster for 20 seconds. And so you can use it on the Nexus or on a gateway or any other building. Say it's doing research or if it's making a unit, it makes it go 50% faster for 20 seconds. And that energy accumulates about 1 energy for every 2 seconds in the game. So hit play again. And at 9 supply, we're going to build a pylon. And the reason why we're building a pylon is because you see our supply. Our supply is at 9 out of 10. If we don't build this pylon and we hit 10 probes, we can't physically have any more, we can't make any more units. And so it's kind of limiting. You can't really do much with only 10 probes. And so with this, um, with this, you need to build the pylon to continue on with the game to make more supply. Think about it as in a certain area, you can only have a certain population because you only have a certain amount of food to supply that population. And so it's kind of the same concept with this, that you need the pylon to have more food for having more of an army or more of units. In this case, more probes that so you can mine more so that you can get the units out. So on our notepad, I'm going to say at 9, we're going to build a pylon. So hit play again, continue on this game. As soon as we have 50 minerals, we're going to build it again. With this, we're just going to keep building probes and everything, and it's all going to be fine. So once the pylon's done, see, for a couple seconds, we couldn't build anything because we were supply capped. We had no more supply that we could use. All right, and so that was the example of you can't have any more units because of that. And so at this point, we're going to select our Nexus, and we're going to Chrono Boost. And that's going to make it where we're going to make more probes faster. The reason why we didn't Chrono Boost beforehand is because we wouldn't be able to use it efficiently because we would run ourselves into that supply block, which is what's called when you don't have enough supply to make any more units. And so at 11 supply, we're going to Chrono Boost. Chrono Boost Nexus. So we're just going to hit play again, because see, there's the Chrono Boost. I'm gonna just speed this up just a little bit, and we're gonna keep making units. And now at 12 supply with this build, we're gonna add our gateway. Um, as you can see by the silhouette, is that that's where the gateway is gonna go down. And with this same probe, we're gonna scout. We're gonna see what he's doing, making sure that he's gonna do something. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is making gateway and everything else, because we don't want him to be doing anything funny that he shouldn't be doing. So we make the 12 gateway, and we're gonna scout. We're gonna scout after that with that probe. So hit play. See the probe's going over. The probe's following where he's supposed to go. His rally's way over here to his base, and we're gonna keep making probes. And it's just we're trying to get our economy up as fast as possible, and we should have another chrono boost. Yep, see another chrono boost. On our nexus, so we can get our probes out faster. So we're gonna put our second chrono on nexus. We have to put supply actually. And it's usually about 14 supply. So 14 supply, second chrono. And so we're gonna hit play again, and we're just gonna build our gas. Our gas is gonna be on 14 supply, and the gas is what we're gonna need to actually get the warp gate technology and get higher tiered units, and so that we can get better units instead of probes and one other unit that you can only get with minerals. And so also at 14 supply, we're gonna get our first gas. So we're gonna build gas. So it has a fancy name of a simulator, but for most people, we're gonna call it gas because if you don't use Protoss, the race of Protoss, it's not called a simulator. So that's why most people just call it gas. At 16 supply, we're going to build another pylon because we're at 16 out of 18 supply. So we have to build another pylon, otherwise we're gonna run into another supply block. So at 16, pylon. And we're just continuing to build probes and everything else. Our scout's almost there. Our probe's right here. It's almost at his base. We're going to fill our gases with 3. And this is another little helper right here, is it tells you how many workers you have in your gas, and 3 is the best amount because it makes it where you don't have any probes sitting around waiting to get gas, and you have enough where their probes are always going to be mining gas. Now, you didn't put the third one in there right away because we're going to do with this probe which is going to go in the gas. We're going to build the cybernetics core. The cybernetics core is where you get the warp gates research and also unlocks tier 1.5 units, kind of. And what I mean by tier 1.5 is that in StarCraft 2 there are certain tiers of units. Tier 1 is your basic units that you get straight out of the gateway with nothing else required. Tier 2 is what you get after the building, at least for Protoss, after the buildings that you get out of your cybernetics core, but which is not going to be involved in this game at all. But what I mean by tier 1.5 is that the cybernetics core actually unlocks units in the gateway, and so that's your tier 1.5 units, which they all require gas, and so you also need the gas for that too. So at 16 supply, also, we're gonna build our cybernetics core. Okay, and we're gonna send that probe back into the gas. Also should at 16 supply we could say fill the gases, and so 16 fill gas. All right, and so we're back here. We're seeing what he's doing. Also with this build is that you get a 12 gateway, which is a little bit faster than what you usually get. You get your gateway at 12 supply than your opponent usually gets. Our opponent probably got a 13 gateway, which means the 13 gateway is more of an economical build because you don't have to stop probe production, which if you don't stop probe production means you have more money, which means you have more units in the later game. And so his cybernetics core is slightly later, which means his warp gate technology is going to be slightly later, which is a good thing for us.